The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Welcome to Planting Seeds, Philanthropy in Saskatchewan, a show where we connect you to the donors and charities making an impact across the prairies. I'm your host, Victor Roman Morrow, with the South Sask Community Foundation. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us here today for our kickoff for Season 3 of Planting Seeds. It's been great to actually realize now that we've had 24 different unique conversations, and we've got 12 more coming up this year. And one of the things we wanted to kick off and start with this year, and we did it last year, it's becoming a bit of a tradition, is it's nice to use this first episode to highlight a bit about the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation, honestly, community foundations as a whole, and give you as the viewer a bit of an insight of what our organization does in the community and our purpose. So once again, I do have Donna Ziegler. She is the Executive Director of the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation. For full context, I'm also the Director of Impact. So we work closely together every single day and know each other well. So what I'm going to do is, before we started recording here, Donna and I were going over some of the things that had happened in the last year, and we've realized there's quite a long list. So we're probably going to kind of guide you through and want to make sure you hear a ton about just some of the really great work that's happening and the great people that are empowering work in our community and keeping our communities strong. So okay, I guess with that said, welcome, Donna.
Thanks, Victor. It's great to be here and really, an honor to be able to tell the public about the Community Foundation. Mm-hmm. So one of the pieces last year that was very significant was it was our 55th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And so we were celebrating 55 years of honoring and protecting and growing people's legacies. Mm-hmm. So that was really an important milestone, I'll say. Mm-hmm. So that was that, and our community foundation in general is here for community, mm-hmm. to help the community be sustainable, whatever challenges are facing them, and mm-hmm. working with donors and working with charities mm-hmm. to ensure that those challenges that they face can be addressed long term. We're in it for the long game. So we've had a lot of impact, as you've stated, over the last year. And over 55 years, we've been able to give back over $70 million back to community mm-hmm. so that they can address those issues. One of the key things that was new last mm-hmm. year, and we continued it this year, was the last year was called the Women Supporting Women event, and it was a breakfast event to celebrate the talents, the treasures, the ties, and the time that mm-hmm. women give back to community. Mm-hmm. As we know, 70% of volunteers are women, and so they do a lot mm-hmm. By giving back their time and treasures and talents. So mm-hmm. we held a breakfast in collaboration with the YWCA mm-hmm. and Raise Her, and we limited to 100 people. We thought, this is new for us. Yeah. And so we started with 100, and it sold out within 2 weeks. Yeah. And we were able to raise $18,000 mm-hmm. that went into a fund that will go directly back to women and children. It's not something they have to apply for and wait a month to see if they get the grant. It's money in the hands of women immediately when they need it that are, looking for shelter, looking for mental health support, mm-hmm. looking for food security, mm-hmm. those immediate needs. And so we're working with the YWCA and Coordinated Access Regina for those charities that give back directly to women. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge success mm-hmm. for us. We continued that mm-hmm. this year, and we more than doubled our presence mm-hmm. with people in the room, and our speakers were incredible. So look forward to that next year, February 3rd, 2026. But that was one of the key highlights that was new for us last year. Following that, we had another new piece was the State of the Foundation address mm-hmm. that we did the end of February. And we give donors and fund advisors, mm-hmm. community leaders, insight into what the Community Foundation has done over the past year, but where it's going. So we give them an opportunity to learn and understand what's going on. I think one other key thing that I recognized or that we did was showed the UnCharitable movie, and I say movie documentary by Dan Paletta, who really talked about how charities have to look at themselves differently, how you have to change that paradigm, change that mindset on how charities are growing and being sustainable in their community, and what marketing techniques do they get to use compared to for-profit organizations. Well, it was a huge success, and I'm still hearing about it, how great it was. I met with a donor, a fund holder this past week who is in his 90s, and he mentioned how much he loved watching that movie or documentary and how it changed his mindset into how charities have to look at themselves and what they should be able to do to sustain their organization. So those are some really awesome new things that kind of happened last year.
Which is great, and that's only a little bit of what's happened. I want to touch a little bit on two of those pieces too before we go further. I just want to kind of highlight that UnCharitable film. So for the audience, if you're interested in looking, I believe the creator's name is Dan Paletta. Maybe we'll find out the spelling to put on screen, but the movie isn't freely available. However, there is a TED Talk that he's done that goes over the themes that the film talks to. And just to give a little bit of a summary, and what I think is really eye-opening about it, is just showing really how when you look at how charitable organizations are positioned within society, that they're competing with every business for attention, but they're expected to do it with virtually nothing. And what they kind of note is that, you know, a charity is there to, in a broad sense, serve people, serve a very specific audience, and help them succeed in society. But they get put under such a strict scope, and every little cent and dollar is monitored to be like it needs to work exactly for this need. But we never question that with other businesses, right? We don't question when Apple does something that might be seen as like frowned upon, or you know, when a big company gets struck with legal fees for whatever reason it is, or when a company like that spends millions on marketing, but they spend millions on marketing because they know that there's a return. So without going too far into it, what I really liked about it is it really showed that like charities, specifically when it comes to things like marketing and operational needs, are often told to like not, it's frowned upon to use money towards those needs, even though it's shown in a lot of case studies that investing responsibly into that in a way that can actually be competitive actually has a much larger response from individuals giving to that charity, to volunteers participating in that charity, and that without that awareness, people don't know it exists. People don't know it's an option to act upon.
I think it's because of the traditional thought of charities. And when I was talking to this donor this past week, who I said was in his 90s, he just had, he was just enlightened. He said, I can't believe I haven't looked at it this way before. And so, it's changing mindsets.
Well, and I want to even say, because my role is to kind of look over the marketing, right? So I can say, you know, we were lucky last year as a foundation. We do have an anonymous donor that understands those needs, and also helped fund some of those operational pieces. And even in that 1 year frame of us just being louder than we have been before, we saw a lot of tangible results. And I know you're going to talk to this later, but maybe this is a time to chat about it. But you know, last year, or I guess at the end of 2024, I was pretty surprised to see we now hold over 200 funds, which, for full context, we've existed for about 56 years up to this recording. That represented about a 25% increase in the amount of individuals, businesses, and charities that hold funds at our foundation. That happened in a single year.
That's right.
Over that 56-year history. And that doesn't happen if people don't know who you are.
Absolutely not. Like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, we had 9 new funds started. Last year, we had 46 new funds started because of the ability to do outreach. We had over 400 meetings with individuals, businesses, charities, different organizations, qualified donees, municipalities. Without that, we wouldn't be able to do those things. So.
And what that truly means, too, is that's 46 new and growing more relationships of people that are committed to sustainably taking care of their community, whether
That's
it be
right.
feeding who's hungry, whether it be
Yeah.
helping people find shelter,
Yeah.
whether it be helping support the arts and keeping your community kind of rich and
That's
thriving.
right. Yeah.
Like all of those things, that's what that truly means. Is
Yeah.
that's a big increase, because that's something that's driving change forever now
That's
for our
right.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were grateful to host that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very important. I think it's unique, and it's great for the audience, I think, to hear kind of that perception that I don't think we think about. I know I didn't think about a lot
Yeah.
before that movie, or definitely didn't think about it strongly.
Right.
The other thing I just want to touch on really quickly too, because we talked a bit about the Community for Women event.
Yes.
It did grow over double, which it was incredible to see.
Yeah.
And it's such an important topic, because we know that specifically women and their children in this province face domestic violence and domestic disputes at higher rates than the rest of the country. So it's a very real need.
Yes, and have for more than a decade. We've been the highest, which really, it makes you think, what else can we do?
Yeah.
So you're right, with that fund, it's going to go directly into the hands of women and children. Our Vital Signs report also showed that they are, they are the most affected by loss of housing, or don't have housing, that don't have food security, that need mental health and suicide supports, and the economic gap. So when we looked at that, and working with the YWCA and a number of other charities, there's a critical need out there for the women and children. So being able to start that fund, the Emergent Fund for Women and Children, and then creating a legacy fund as well is really important, because again, you want to be sustaining the ability to give resources to those individuals that require it over the long haul. Like I said, Saskatchewan's been the highest numbers for domestic violence for over a decade. That's not going away. And so trying to make sure we have sustainable dollars to give back to those individuals.
And the last thing that I'll highlight that I really like about it, and that I think is such like a unique and important approach, is there are not many, almost no opportunities where, so the audience knows generally what will happen if you're seeking funding as a charity, you're seeking funding for a program. So for example, you might have let's say a food security program, and you're applying for funding that's going to help you cover some staff, cover the food supplies, cover the transportation. Those are the types of the items. But it's very rare that there's an instance where you can just, as a charity, get money and hand it to the person that needs it, so that they can use it for the most basic needs.
Exactly.
And the thing I love about this fund is that we've found a way to do that.
Yes.
And as you mentioned before, it is a collaborative effort. So we hold the fund, we build the fund, we do community partnerships to do so. But in the end, it's about 14 to 15 community organizations that are actually deciding, because they're the ones that are working with people seeking shelter.
People. We don't pretend to know that, but we can handle the charitable side, the charity side, and get growth for their resources.
That's right. And then it lets them identify those individuals. And maybe, do you want to describe, what are some of the ways that individuals have benefited when they get
what we've learned, what the Y and the YWCA and others have mentioned, is that it maybe perhaps an individual woman can save up enough money for rent, but they might not be able to afford the holding. Like, you have to put down a month in advance, and then you pay for your rent. So they might not have that resource for the holding money. They might not have the money for cell phone, or which you're required to have now, or for many things, or they might not have enough resources to pay for daycare and pay for rent. So these are resources that go directly to the individuals, the mom and 3 children who require a safe place to stay, and they need the arrears paid for. You also can't get an apartment or any kind of housing if you have arrears in energy or your power bill. So some of these resources will be used to pay for the arrears so that they can get into stable housing. There's many other asks, or many other requirements that the women and children need, like maybe baby formula or diapers, that the current, as we all know, the inflation costs, there just might not be that opportunity to pay for anything additional, like even a birthday gift. A lot of these parents are working penny to penny. And so when you think of the immediate needs, it could be for food, it could be for seeing a counselor, it could be for a bus pass. We have seen all of these pieces in the stories that have come out from the frontline workers that deal directly with the women and children.
Yeah, absolutely. One really quick one that I think really illustrates too, just like how not only is it needed, not only is it necessary, but it even saves money in many cases. So really quick example is the one I think we illustrated on one of our boards at the event, which was, a woman is, fleeing a bad situation with her kids, but then her car breaks down and she has no money to fix her car. The reality of that is that because she can't get to work, suddenly she's at risk of losing her job. She loses her job, she can't feed her kids. She can't take care of her kids, she loses her kids, she loses her house. All of this could have actually just been taken care of if they just had a couple $100s to fix a key part of their car and keep going to work. And the reality even beyond that, once you get to that point of, you have, unfortunately, if social services are looking into taking those kids, that alone, even that call to social services, that costs more than it would have to just give a couple $100s. So even when you put it into that lens, it's like, it's kind of a win-win. It's like you're honestly, by catching it at those core moments and helping somebody in that pivotal time, you're not only helping them get onto the right path, but by doing that, you're also circumventing so many services that won't be needed as a result.
That's right.
Which is really important.
Yeah, and keeping them housed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Which is critical. So there's, even throughout the year, the Women Supporting Women and the Community for Women Breakfast is really important. We sold out both years in a short amount of time. So I would suggest people get on the list for February 3rd, 2026. So we're really excited about that. Some other things that have happened over the last year, though, one of the other pieces was embracing an enhanced partnership, perhaps, with the Lauren and Evelyn Johnson Foundation. We've been doing some of their administration work for 20 years. They've been around for 60 years. And it's a private foundation that was started by Lauren and Evelyn Johnson. And they have a committee that works on their behalf now because they've both passed. But over the last year, with our relationship, we have now been able to advance that and work directly with them. So acquiring the private foundation and helping them work through all the details of that has allowed them to now become a partner and a family member of the Community Foundation. It was a significant event for us and for them, and they are very much community-minded individuals who care about community and looked for efficiencies on how they could do the work that they're doing even better. And so by working with the Community Foundation, they found that there will be a number of efficiencies for themselves and even in their time that they give. So
I know I've been lucky to work with that committee for kind of before and after, and it was kind of nice hearing. I know Judge Bill Van Cise, who's been a longtime member of that committee, was really clear that when they started to look at the numbers and everything with us, that they were saving administration time and costs, and they've actually been able to gain more back than they would have the way they were operating before, which is really exciting. So, and what I love about that story of the Lauren and Evelyn Johnson Fund is, like, we're 56 years old as a community foundation. That fund is older than ours. It's over 60 years old. They formed that, and they were, Lauren and Evelyn Johnson were really visionary back then, taking care of specifically organizations like the Regina Symphony Orchestra and individuals in need and children in need within the Regina and area communities. And it's really neat to see so many years later, people who didn't even get to meet them still living on and carrying on what they established in their honor and making sure their wishes are still being taken care of so many years later. And as a result, like millions of dollars have gone back to the community, including like crucial dollars to arts organizations after a pandemic that put a lot of those in flux. So it's just, I think if Lauren and Evelyn Johnson were still alive today, they'd be amazed at the work that their money did or is doing that they planted such a long time ago.
I would agree. So that's been a really big celebration for us and them. And so we were really excited, and we continue that relationship in a very positive way. I think another piece that was monumental last year was the Truth and Reconciliation celebration that we did in July. And it was kind of a culmination of all the grants and the relationships that we've built with Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. And the resources that have gone out to community. Again, it was based on anonymous donation, anonymous bequest, I guess, that we received. And we used some of those resources to put towards a Truth and Reconciliation Fund. And then worked with a completely Indigenous First Nations and Métis committee that decided where the resources would go. So approximately close to 600,000 went out the door to organizations that were working on Truth and Reconciliation over 2 to 3 years. You were part of, you weren't part of the committee, but you oversaw the committee and assisted with it. So you'd be very familiar with that. I think it was a wonderful celebration. We brought in Indigenous dancers from the Yorkton area, and we had some key speakers. But I think, overall it was a great understanding of where the resources could be used. For example, the Cowess's Education Center received resources from that fund.
Sisters of Sobriety, Women of Wellbriety.
Yes, which I thought was amazing. But there's so many great organizations that are doing good work. The challenge, of course, is that you always have way more requests than you have resources for. And so we only had about 600,000 to give back to community, but there was a couple $1 million in requests for actions that people wanted to do or organizations wanted to do, which we couldn't fund. So we do have a Truth and Reconciliation Legacy Fund now that we are working towards, and hoping that donors, community members, businesses will kind of step up and help support that fund so that more resources can go into the community around Truth and Reconciliation and help us know the history, but also build relationships. And what does reconciliation look like? And so that's our hope. So that was another awesome celebration this past year.
Absolutely. And I'll even just say, for people that are listening, if you're ever wondering, how do you get involved with Truth and Reconciliation? I want to give towards causes, but I'm not sure the right way to do so. It is a really nice vehicle that's set up here because, as you mentioned, it is Indigenous-led. So if you want Indigenous representatives in your community who are doing that work, who understand that community well, they're the ones who are choosing. So it's kind of nice because from the donor perspective, you know that the money you're giving is going back to causes that are well vetted and doing great work in the community towards the needs of kind of, I guess, resurfacing culture, education and language.
So so that was a really awesome celebration. And then in August, we held our second annual Friendraiser, which was a huge, I want to say huge success, but I say success because that is what we heard from the people who attended. There were so many people so excited about it. We had and I want to say too that our students led that event like they did the year before. And so we had key members like Carly Stengel and Armand work on that project. And it came to life at Connexus. And we had over 100 charities that participated under one roof, and 400 community members, donors, community members who came. Now, the key piece of this Friendraiser is it's an opportunity for the community to get to know the charities that are within their area and the work that they're doing. We asked donors and community members, leave your checkbook at home. This is about an educational opportunity for them to walk and see the hundreds of charities that provide services back to community. I think when people think about charities, one of the pieces is that charities provide that sense of joy in community, whether it's sports, education, or arts, or culture. They provide that joyful piece or part of your life. And so learning about all these charities and what they do for community
Yeah.
is really important to the charities, but it's also important to the community members that get to visit them. Lots of times
Absolutely.
people know maybe the top 10 charities.
Yeah.
There was 100 there.
Yeah.
And so, all the way from land preservation to, plays and arts
Yeah.
and different things. So there's such a variety that people
Mhm.
get to see. These are all the charities?
Yeah.
Yes, and this is what they're doing. So it was super. It was a really nice event. And so we're hoping to do that again in August. And so I would get you to look on our website. I think the date is, it's the week of August 13th to 18th, somewhere in there.
Somewhere mid-August, yeah.
Mid-August. And so you can go online and register for that too.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And then kind of one more thing I wanted to touch on last year, and maybe we can talk just really briefly about some of these opportunities, just remind people of how to register for some of these events for 2025. But National Philanthropy Day, that's another one that we support when we kind of talk about celebrating donors and volunteers and the work they do.
Yeah. So we, the Community Foundation sponsors the Outstanding Legacy Award, and that is somebody who has given back to community over time, or that they've left a charity in their will or their estate, or they've given back, like I said, over a number of years and made a significant impact as a legacy gift.
Yeah.
And so we have sponsored that, and we feel it's really important to celebrate those individuals or businesses or community members that have given back their resources and their time and talents too,
Absolutely.
but mostly around what they've done as in a legacy aspect. This year, the Community Foundation was happy to support and recognize the Lorne and Evelyn Johnson Foundation for their legacy giving, and the G. Murray and Edna Forbes Foundation, which has also been around for about 25 years, 26 years. And then also the Bob Perry was also recognized, or Robert Perry. He was recognized too. Bob has been a long time friend of the foundation, and he's been a board member, he's been an advisor, financial advisor, and he's been a true friend. And so he started his own fund this past year. And the key with that is that Bob was a person who has been alongside the Community Foundation, but didn't really know where he would fit in. And when approached, he said, of course, I would love to start a fund with the foundation. And I don't really know the priorities in the area, so I'm going to leave it to the Community Foundation and their Vital Signs fund to decide where those resources go, which is really critical. And he's also left us in his will. And so we know that the community will have some resources because of Bob's legacy gift. So the National Philanthropy Day gave us an opportunity to recognize those individuals and many more.
Perfect. I think we did it. We got through going through probably 50% of what happened last year. As we just kind of close it down here, and before we say bye, I just want to give a moment. You had mentioned the Community for Women event for 2026, as well as the Friendraiser for 2025. As we leave here and kind of say bye, can you just remind people how can they get involved in these pieces if they want?
So you could go to our website, sscf.ca, and just check out. There's many opportunities on there. Contact myself or you, Victor, but going to the website and just seeing all the pieces that we offer. Organize, have a meeting with us. We'd love to meet. Again, last year we met with over 400 organizations, individuals. We'd love to meet with you and just tell you about the Community Foundation and how you can get involved. But I go to the website and just see who and what we are.
Awesome. Well, thanks. It's been great having you today, Donna.
Thanks so much, Victor. This has been wonderful.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about the South Sask Community Foundation or how you can make an impact in your community, or perhaps you want to sign up to go to our Community for Women event next year, go to yourlegacyforever.ca. Thank you.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today